Today's book, Inseparable by Simone de Beauvoir. This is the first time I've read a book by de Beauvoir. Matter of fact, I know very little about her other than what people would read who were sort of normal 20th century readers, I guess. I knew she was involved with Jean-Paul Sartre. I knew she was French. Now I know a lot more. This is a novel that she wrote, I guess, in the early 50s. Interesting that it was rejected it was only published recently, way after her death, because her partner in life, one of her partners in life, Jean-Paul Sartre, was not pleased with it and didn't understand it and didn't think it was worth publishing, so it wasn't. More on that later. I also know that she was involved with Nelson Algren, a writer that I really like, and I have a video about Nelson Algren's work on this channel. She and Nelson were lovers from 1947 to 1964, according to Wikipedia, while she also had a relationship with Jean-Paul Sartre and also another guy. So basically she had these, she was polyamorous, is basically what it is. Now, what goes on in the novel is about two children. It's an early love story, kind of her first love for this other schoolmate of hers. They were both 8 when they met during World War I, this is. So they were born in 08, 07, 08, around then, which puts you right to be a kid and into your teens and all that during the conflict that was the lovely World War I trench warfare, so on and so forth, which you can also see a video about called Fear, which is about a Frenchman who is serving in that very war. Well, these are rich girls. They're not in the war. They are both privileged rich girls, and they are very controlled and rich girls. So they are Catholic girls. And they meet and they have the book and the relationship in all of its 128 pages, whatever it is, goes from their childhood at age 8 in through their very earliest of adult year, 21, 22, and then it stops there because, well, one of them passes on. We'll have to guess which one, eh? Okay. So, Simone de Beauvoir really liked this girl, Elizabeth, and connected with her. And through the course of the novel, she's referred to as, what is she called? Emily? Andre, yes. And so Andre and she uses another name for herself, Sylvie, which is the name of her adopted daughter, ultimately. So she and this girl become fast friends, and a lot of it is chronicling the relationships that Andre is trying to get into with boys. She's in love with one boy named, what is his name, Bernard, but he is actually kind of lives in Argentina, and the parents don't really approve of him, and she's completely frustrated about this. Ultimately, she loses Bernard, and that relationship did not happen because of the feelings of her parents. So then she meets Pascal, And Pascal is a Catholic boy like her, and they're both good Catholics. Whereas Simone's character, she's like, I don't believe this stuff. So she's not really internally conflicted by the issues of the faith, which Andre is very much involved with the faith and conflicted with what God wants to do, and certain questions about, is God nice to us? Does God like us? That kind of a thing, because he allows so much evil in the world. I mean, this all starts during World War I, and how can you get much more evil than that? It was a horrible, horrible human conflict. It's just pick your conflict, which is worse. They're all just horrible. Humans get into horrible activities when they organize and do stuff. I mean, the church is kind of a horrible activity, extremely powerful, controlling France and controlling these girls. And ultimately, you get a picture of what was life like in the good old days for a couple of girls. And the good old days were kind of not very good. So you can forget about worshiping and wanting the good old days when you were completely under control of the church and your parents. Now, of course, we're all, so many of us are involved with this sort of secular point of view about things now, and we don't get too involved with the church or wondering about the church, but we're all sort of floating in this commercial wonderland of advertising and all these other strange influences, and we're kind of just as bad off in another kind of a way. So it's a really kind of interesting little novel. I didn't really expect that much out of it. I was like, okay, a novel that was rejected early on and published a lot later, so it's like, what, pieces of crap that were left around. Okay, she's famous, we know her, let's publish this one. So actually it's much more than that and much better, and I think it's a worthwhile read. Margaret Atwood introduces the book, and Margaret Atwood spends a good deal of time in that, giving us a little bit more background about Simone de Beauvoir and everything else. Now, you know how we don't really march away from the constrictions of our youth. Maybe we try to justify them or fix them in some other ways. Simone ends up getting involved very young with, I mean, he's around because there's letters between these two, and the young girl, the friend, dies very young, so there's already correspondence between the two, as far as she says, I'd like to meet this Sartre guy, and he's off into the military at that point, a young man apparently. So, and he was a young man, and this is still in the 20s, in the late 20s by this point. So the point is that she goes and gets involved with Sartre right away after her parents. He probably was the rebellious beacon away from her parents, since he was basically a communist and existentialist. So, I don't know much about existentialism period, and I know less about existentialist communist. When I was in church, I went to church in Ohio, and one time, I don't know how this guy got into the scene, but some kind of traveling guy who was an existentialist Christian of some sort, and he was trying to introduce that to us young folks, and it was completely over my head. He wasn't around long enough to get anything really from him, and I wasn't that deeply involved with the church anyway, so, but that's another matter. So she gets involved with this really kind of a hard communist. And then he approves of what she can do and what she can say. He approves of the book or not. He disapproves of the book, so it's not published. So you go from one thing where you're in control to another thing that you're being controlled. That's the way some of us are sometimes. We just we try to make things better, and they don't actually get that much better for us because we just move on to another thing that's quite a bit similar. So I would say this is a worthwhile read. You know, quick, easy. It was at the library. Will I get further into these people? I don't know. I agree that hell is other people to a certain degree, as Sartre is quoted as saying. So, you know, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff to read, and this is a little low on my... I might read her autobiography, because Nelson Algren was pissed about that because she put in too much personal stuff about him and her in it, and he did not like that, and I think that led to their their relationship finally collapsing, as well as whatever the distance and everything else that goes on in a relationship like that. So, Inseparable, never before published novel by Simone de Beauvoir.